Vice Chair Hall, and our flag salute will be led by Commissioner Harvey. If you'd all please stand.
Lord, thank you for allowing us to meet tonight. Thank you for your guidance in this meeting. We pray that you grant us wisdom to our staff, to the members sitting on this dais, that we'll make the decisions that will be the best for the city. We pray for our first responders, our military, and their families. We pray that you'll make their hardship as easy as it can be on them. I pray in your name. Amen.
Please remain standing and join us as we honor our nation's flag. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. May I have the roll call, please?
Commissioners Diana Cook,
Present.
Miguel Coronado,
Present.
Cassandra Harvey,
Present.
Fabian Terraciano,
Here.
Vice Chair Randy Hall,
Here.
Chairman James Vos.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. Public business from the floor. If an individual is unable to stay for the entire meeting, we offer a short period of time for anyone who would like to address us about an agenda item. You would be limited to 2 minutes each. Do we have any early speakers, Mr. Ludicky?
No requests, Mr. Chairman.
All right. Then any person who would like to address the commission on an agenda item is asked to please fill out a speaker's card and turn it into Mr. Ludicky, Ms. Corbett, or Ms. Corbett, and you will be called upon at the time the item is called, and you will have the opportunity to speak for 3 minutes. Tonight we have a number of items. Before we move into the agenda, I'd like to make note of correspondence that we have received for the record. We've received correspondence from SOMAS, uncontested letter recommendation on track 61970 and 62793. We've received a letter on item number 3A, which is track number 61970 from Dorothy Broom. We've received a letter on track 60291 and 60664, uncontested letter from the developer on that. We've received a letter on 3D, which is track 60291 from Ms. Broom. We received a letter from duplication. Item 3E, we received another letter from Ms. Broom on track 60664. And finally, an uncontested letter on vesting tenor track map 61817. First item of business is our consent calendar, which is the minutes from our regular meeting of December 14, 2014. May I have a motion, please?
I move that we adopt the draft of the minutes from the Planning Commission meeting on December 14th, 2015.
I'll second that motion.
Thank you. Questions or comments? Please vote.
Motion passes 5-0 with 1 abstention.
Oh, all right. Thank you. First item of business is a new public hearing. So without objection, a new public hearing is open. This item is the Lancaster Municipal Code Amendment, prohibition of medical marijuana dispensaries and the cultivation and/or delivery of marijuana. The applicant is the City of Lancaster. And who is going to present on this? Ms. Corbett?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. In late 2015, the state legislature passed and the governor signed 3 pieces of legislation collectively called the Medical Marijuana Regulation and Safety Act. The purpose of the law is to provide for a statewide program for the licensing and regulation of commercial cannabis activity, specifically the operation of medical marijuana dispensaries, the indoor and outdoor cultivation of marijuana, and the delivery of marijuana. The Act provides that cities do still have the authority to adopt ordinances to either regulate medical marijuana businesses or to prohibit such operations and related activities altogether. One part of the law provides that if a city does not have a zoning ordinance in place that expressly addresses cultivation, by March 1, 2016, the state becomes the sole licensing and regulatory authority for that activity. There's similar language concerning delivery within the city. The City of Lancaster currently does not have any ordinance on the books addressing medical marijuana activities. Because it's important to retain local control of this very important issue, we're recommending that you adopt the resolution to recommend to City Council that they approve the ordinance to prohibit the operation of medical marijuana dispensaries, prohibit the indoor and outdoor cultivation of marijuana, and to prohibit delivery of marijuana within the city. Mr. DeRico is here to answer any questions and to speak a little more about the public safety aspect of this. The last thing I'd like to say before I turn it over to him is that it's important to note that staff is not making any judgment of any kind about whether marijuana has medical benefits, whether individuals experience some medical benefit from the use of marijuana. We're passing no judgment in any way. This is solely to retain local control of this matter, so that we can have further discussion should council wish to do so without a sense of haste and urgency. And with that, I'll pass it on to Mr. DeRico.
Hi, thank you for that. I'm a little sick, so I'm not my normal voice here, but and probably not as chatty as I usually am. Okay, but I'll try and work on that. I think from a public safety aspect of this is we clearly have issues that have been very noteworthy, especially in the local community and in the Los Angeles metropolitan area. We actually had a recent event where a collective was actually robbed and the worker inside there was shot several times, and that just happened in Little Rock recently. So I think more of what I'm addressing this is on the public safety aspect. And again, as Jocelyn said, the city's not making a judgment here as far as the value of medical marijuana and how it helps people with the issues they have. It's more about the extracurricular things that are associated with these collectives. Just locally, we've had 7 different incidences of collectives that are in the general area here of Lancaster that have had where they've been robbed. You know, it's primarily a cash business. Actually, an article out of the Los Angeles Times states because there's issues related with banks having association with criminal type of activity, okay, or how those things are operated, that they could be in jeopardy themselves based on their affiliation with the government. The federal government does not recognize California's marijuana initiative, has been very vocal about the fact that there's legislation that they're continuing to monitor as it relates to the legalization of marijuana in California. But just on a local basis, and I was a former narcotics detective, I can tell you that there's an association between narcotics and crime. Mainly things that drive theft, larcenies, those types of things to get monies to obtain drugs. And then even for this, it creates an avenue and a localized position. And again, it was ironic after our discussion in front of the Crime Commission the very next day this happened in Little Rock. Some of the discussion is there's some certain amount of innocence that's associated with marijuana. That is not the case in some of these situations. If you went to Northern California alone, in some of the counties like Stanislaus County as well, their murder rate has gone up significantly just for the mere fact that they know it exists there, and groups that are involved in criminal enterprise will go there and rob them just for that because of the street value associated with that narcotics. So these are the things we're concerned about. I will tell you, based on our local thing and 7 different specific incidents that I could address here, but they have a common issue. And the fact is, there's usually a amount of cash or the marijuana itself that's desirous for those individuals that are involved in the illicit or illegal activity associated with the drug while trying to obtain it, either by robbing the store, and there's incidents of holding people hostage. There's all kinds of things that we've had. Again, just now, and especially based on this legislation that was passed, we're under a timeline by March 1st to be able to have an opportunity for our community to decide how we want to manage this issue. And that is based on why we're here today, to talk to you as the Planning Commission and solicit that recommendation to the council just so we can obtain that. If we don't do that and have this in place by March 1st, we're going to be subject to whatever the state mandates that will be appropriate. And so this is more to garner protection of our local rights and the ability to manage this issue.
Thank you. The members have any questions or comments for our presenters?
One or two. I'm all for local control. I think that's a really good idea. I have a problem with it coming down from even higher than we can control here. Some of the people that I know make the argument that banning medical marijuana is similar to prohibition. It creates an underclass of people. It's like you said, a cash-only business because the federal government hasn't allowed it to be legal yet. Is it possible in the future, if federal law comes down and does legalize marijuana, that it will then become not a cash-only business and that it will be integrated and protected by the sheriff and law enforcement?
If it's made permissible on the federal level, that eliminates the whole banking cash side of the issue that is really the prime generator of the criminal activity. What Lee did speak of with respect to the marijuana itself and what individuals have to do to be able to afford to obtain the marijuana is sort of a separate conversation that's not appropriate at this particular time. A lot of the problems would go away if across the nation, both at the federal and the state level, we had uniformity of laws. It's the fact that there is conflict that creates a lot of the issues at the moment.
So often we vote and our vote is overturned by courts. And I just think that the citizens of California have voted to legalize medical marijuana, and we are taking a step to try to keep control of medical marijuana in our backyard in the city of Lancaster. And I just wanted to make sure that I let everybody know I'm very much for that. I think that we have to do that because we don't know what's going to happen if it comes from the state. It could be, moon rocks if it comes from the state.
That's exactly the issue, okay? Because they right now don't have an informed plan on how to implement the state's part of that. And that's the biggest struggle that typically we see with some of this legislation. Prop 47 is a perfect example about that, how that would be managed, and especially on a resource management level. So again, typically what we deal with in these issues, especially this type of thing as it has a direct correlation to public safety, there's be regulation without the revenues to support whatever regulation they put in place. So it's also a fiscal management issue for us as a city to have things in place that we have control of our own financial future for the community as it relates to these issues.
Thank you.
And in addition to retaining the local control, this buys us some time to see what the state plan is and how it shakes out. They haven't even put together the implementation. They don't have the department or the division set up. We have no idea what this is going to look like once they get in there. It may end up being a wonderful thing, and we'll be happy to relegate our authority up to the state, maybe.
Thank you. Anything further from anyone?
I'd say that was optimistic.
Go ahead.
Do you have any idea where the federal government is on this issue?
It's my understanding that although the current DOJ position is that they will not enforce within the states that have legalized marijuana or medical marijuana, this particular administration is over in a year. Absolutely no way of knowing what's going to happen down the road. So again, we still have that conflict, and until that conflict has been permanently resolved, we're not going to be on safe ground.
All right, thank you. Anything further? Do I have speakers on this matter, Mr. Ludicky?
No, Mr. Chairman.
Really?
Let me say I have no speakers cards on this matter.
Well, since there's a whole lot of folks in the audience tonight, maybe someone would like to speak to us, and if you do, those who arrive late may not know that they need to fill out a speaker's card, and we'll call on you and you can speak on this matter. Do we have anyone who has a compelling urge to speak to us on this matter? Apparently not. Going once, twice. Last call. All right, thank you. So, it'd be appropriate to close the public hearing without objection and consider a motion on this recommendation.
I move that we adopt resolution number 16-01, recommending to the City Council an amendment to Title 17 zoning of the Lancaster Municipal Code by adding a new section, 17.04.235 to Chapter 17.04, General Provisions relating to the prohibition of medical marijuana dispensaries, the indoor-outdoor cultivation and/or delivery of marijuana, the medical marijuana urgency ordinance.
Thank you.
I'll second that.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Please vote.
Motion passes 6-0. Just as an announcement, this item is proposed to be taken up at the City Council meeting of February 9th.
All right, February 9th. Thank you. And thank you both for your presentation tonight. Thank you, Mr. D'Averico. Sorry, I neglected to introduce a couple of folks here. We have a new associate planner, Tim Rosenstein, right? And welcome. You joined us last week in our staff briefing section. And we have a new development services director, recently engaged in our fine community, Jeff Hogan, and welcome. Is this your first day?
Yes, this is my first day. I'm 8 hours new or old, however you look at it. It's been a great day, too. Everyone's been very welcoming. Community and city staff's been great.
We'll try not to throw any damp water on that tonight. One never knows what happens in these meetings. We'll try to be on our better behavior, though.
As long as the paycheck doesn't bounce.
That's right. Welcome. All right. The next item is item number 3A, which is a one-year extension. This is a new public hearing. So without objection, the public hearing is open on tentative tract map number 61970. As I pointed out, I believe we received a uncontested letter. However, we received some correspondence from Ms. Broom, and I'm assuming we have some speakers. Do we have speakers?
Not on this item, Mr. Chairman.
Oh, all right then. It's your pleasure, folks. Would you care to hear a staff report? Nope. Nope. All right then. It's appropriate to close the public hearing then, without objection, and consider a motion.
I move that we grant a one-year extension to January 17th, 2017, based on the findings contained in the staff report and subject to the revised conditions list, attachment to resolution number 06-06.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you. Further discussion? Please vote. Next item is item 3B, which is, pardon?
Mr. Chairman, we haven't locked in that vote. Dr. Coronado?
Motion.
All right.
Motion passes 6-0.
Thank you. Next item is item 3B, which is a new public hearing on tentative tract map number 62403. So without objection, the public hearing is open on this. We have not received an uncontested letter on this, or maybe we have, and I just didn't read it right. Nope, we did not.
60-day.
So, we have a staff report on this, please.
Good evening, Chairman Bose, Commissioners. This is a request for a one-year time extension for tentative tract map 62403. The applicant is Stantec Consulting. This is located on about 64 acres on the southeast corner of Avenue L and future 80th Street West. This is a subdivision for 204 single-family lots in the R10,000 zone. Staff's recommendation is to grant a 60-day time extension for a future public hearing at the March 21st meeting. Although we did not receive an uncontested letter, the applicant is not contesting this recommendation. We are in agreement with staff that we need additional time to obtain more information to provide conditions of approval that are appropriate for this request.
Thank you. Any questions or comments for staff? No? All right, do we have speakers on this, Mr. Ludicky?
No speakers on this item, Mr. Chairman.
All right, then, thank you. It's appropriate then to close the public hearing without an objection and consider a motion on 3B.
I move that we grant a 60-day time extension for a further public hearing at March 21st, 2016, at the next March Planning Commission meeting.
Thank you.
I'll second that motion.
Thank you. Further discussion? Please vote.
Motion passes 6-0.
Thank you. Next item is a new public hearing on tentative tract map number 62793. So without objection, the public hearing is open on this matter. We have received an uncontested letter on this. Do we have any speakers?
Not on this item, Mr. Chairman.
All right, thank you. Anyone care to hear a staff report? Nope. All right, then. It's appropriate to close the public hearing without objection and consider a motion on this item.
I move that we grant a 60-day time extension for a future public hearing at the March 21st, 2016 Planning Commission meeting.
Thank you.
Second that motion.
Thank you. Any further questions or comments? Please vote.
Motion passes 6-0.
Thank you. Next item is item 3D, which is a new public hearing on vesting tentative tract map number 60291. So without objection, the public hearing is open on this matter. We have received an uncontested letter on this. Do we have any speakers?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
All right. Sir, a staff report then, please.
Chairman Bowes, Commissioners, this is a request for extension for vesting tentative tract map 60291. The applicant is Royal Investors Group. This is a map that is located on 20 acres on the south side of Avenue K4, approximately 325 feet west of 35th Street West. This is a subdivision for 66 single-family lots in the R10,000 zone. Again, the recommendation is a one-year extension to January 16, 2017. The background on this tract map, this was originally approved by the Planning Commission on November 20th, 2006. The City Council heard an appeal for this map and denied the appeal on January 16, 2007, upholding the Planning Commission decision. Since that time, the state of California has granted 4 automatic time extensions, carrying the expiration of this map to January 16, 2016. Since that time, the map is now subject to local time extensions. This is the first of 3 time extension requests available to the applicant. And the applicant states that they need the additional time for the completion of improvement plans in the future. Staff has taken a look at the conditions and have drafted revised conditions and is recommending approval of the one-year extension. Welcome any future questions that you may have.
Thank you. For clarification, the commission that heard this initially and adopted this map and the city council subsequently sustaining the planning commission's action are none of us or none of them who currently sit in these seats or their seats. That'd be correct?
As best memory serves, yes, I'd say that's a correct statement.
All right. All right, then. Any questions or comments
So,
for
Chair-
staff?
So Chairman Bowes, you're saying that this is rather old business that's being...
Seems to be. 2006 seems to be quite a while ago.
That would be my question for Mr. Ng is, we've had a lot of the tentative tract maps come back up, and for the edification of our audience tonight, I think it would be a really good idea to explain why we're bringing these back up 10 years later, and why they weren't built 10 years ago, and if they got their water letter.
About 10 years ago, well, let's go back 10 years, 2005, we had a housing boom during that time. We received many requests to divide land for residential subdivisions. This kind of peaked in between 03, 04, 05, maybe in 06, and then the bottom kind of dropped, in 07 and 08. This is one of the maps that came before us during that time. The approval of a tentative map it's a 2-year approval. So within the 2 years, in order for an applicant to move forward, they need to record a map and to be able to build on that map. But a lot of these maps, they haven't been recorded, and when they're not recorded, they're subject to expiration. This was, originally approved in 06, which means it was subject to expiration in 2008. However, in 2008, the California state passed some bills which provided an automatic time extension to these maps. This is statewide. So in 2008, the state granted SB, passed 1185 in 2000 for automatic one-year extension. In 2009, they passed AB 333, which pushed it another 2 years. In 2011, they passed AB 208, which again pushed the expiration another 2 years. And in 2013, they passed AB 116, which carried the expiration another 2 years for a total of 7 years. So you have the original 2-year expiration time frame plus another 7 years granted by the state for a total of 9 years, and now it's, subject to expiration. So it comes back to us now that there's no more state extensions available, at least not one that's applicable to us. So that would cause us to be subject to local time extension requests. So there's the original 2-year approval time frame. After those 2 years, the applicant needs to come back to the city and ask for a 1-year extension for a total of 3 that's available to them. This is the first of 3 available local extensions. But that's a short history on maps.
So if the commission votes to grant this extension, do you think that another decade will go by, or will it only be 3 years? And this process that we're doing tonight, does it guarantee that the map will be built, or does it just mean that the map can still stay active?
If we grant a 1-year extension, the new expiration date would be January 16, 2017. So it's still subject to expiration. They would need to come back with another request before January 16, 2017 to extend this another year. And anyway, there's 3 available extensions. At some point, you would exhaust the extensions.
Ever being the optimist, what do you think our chances are of these tentative track maps being built?
That may be a question that's left to the applicant.
Thank you.
I have one quick question. The original appeal to the city council, was that due to the zoning at the time?
Your package includes the original city council staff report, including the appeal request. There were several grounds for appeal by the applicant back in 2006. And so if we go to that staff report, I'll call out the bullet points real quickly. These were some of the reasons for the appeal as proposed by the applicant that filed the appeal. That the project cannot be approved if there are feasible alternatives that would reduce adverse impacts. A reasonable range of alternatives must be considered and was not. Numerous and narrow objectives were improperly used to reject feasible alternatives. So these were reasonings provided by those that filed the appeal. Also, a statement of overriding considerations may not be adopted because feasible alternatives exist to reduce the impacts. This is out of the original City Council staff report.
Thank you. You did point out that the state, in fact, did pass legislation recently granting automatic 2-year time extension. However, if I understand it correctly, our portion of Los Angeles County, or this county actually, would not qualify under that legislation. So That's why this matter is before us tonight. That's correct?
That's correct.
All right.
The state passed AB 1303, but there's a very specific qualifying criteria, and we don't meet it.
All right. All right, then. We have speakers on this matter?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
All right.
Patrick Satzer.
Good evening. Patrick, and I didn't get your last name?
Satzer, and I'll give you all the details. Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Patrick Satzer, and I reside at 43300 Vista Sierra Drive. I'm a 40-year resident of the city of Lancaster, and I'm representing the Friends of the Prime Desert Woodlands. First, I would like to commend the city of Lancaster for establishing the Prime Desert Woodland Preserve. The preserve is a unique park. There is nothing like it available in any other city within the Antelope Valley, or for that matter, within the Mojave Desert. In 1988, the city of Lancaster conducted the Prime Desert Woodland Policy Study that defined city policy, which is to protect areas designated as prime desert woodlands, and set policy for land acquisition in those areas. Woodland sites were identified. Desert woodlands are very rare and only found in the Antelope Valley. Site 1 was deemed the best site, and it includes the 5 parcels that are on my chart within the track map that you're discussing. In 1989, the city included these parcels in the Prime Desert Master Plan. The land within this track map is pristine desert woodlands, as you can see on my map and Mr. Ludicke's. The density of junipers and Joshua trees are greater than in the preserve. It's the best desert woodland in the city of Lancaster. Between 1989 and 2000, the city acquired many parcels that are included in the preserve. Only one parcel was acquired within the track map. In 2000, the general plan was modified and the boundary of the preserve was moved from K4 down to where it is now. At that time, all 5 parcels were put up for sale. Royal Investors LLC bought the 5 parcels in 03 and 04, then immediately sold those parcels to Fieldstone. Fieldstone prepared the track map for 66 single-family homes, as you've seen earlier, and filed it with the city for vesting. The Friends of the Prime Desert Woodlands blocked that, and they forced the city to do an environmental impact report. The report was released in May of 2006 and is still valid. The mitigation measures are specified in the report were approved by the City Council when the track map was approved in November of 2006. These measures are significant and costly and must be complied with prior to development of this land. A key measure is to acquire 42 acres of equivalent in-kind desert woodlands. It's only available in Ripley. That's $250,000 to $300,000 of acquisition prior to grading. Fieldstone sold the land with the track map to Lancaster 30 Acre LLC, a spin-off of Fieldstone, on February 5th, 2010. Then in 2012, they sold it to the current owner, Cheyenne Capital LLC. I appealed to the City Planning Commission to deny extension and begin acquisition of the 20.6 acres for expansion of the preserve to the original planned size. Proposition A money is still available. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your comments. And the nice thing about having a planning commission meeting in a public forum, one thing I think you should remember, at least I do, that this is not an entertainment venue. It's nice to hear folks clap, and your speaker is an excellent speaker and presented your case very well. However, we would prefer you did not, and it doesn't add to your case, at least from my point of view. At any rate, staff will respond at the end of the public's presentation, and if the applicant is here, they will have an opportunity to rebut. I did not call on the applicant initially, but I'm not sure that an applicant is here. So, do we have other speakers, Mr. Ludicky?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Please call them.
Sandy McCammett. I hope I pronounced Sally McCammett. Sorry about that.
Good evening, welcome.
Good evening. My name is Sally McCammett. One of the main reasons that my husband and I purchased our home on Vista Sierra Drive was the beautiful backyard. Our home sits on a quiet
Could
street.
you hold just a moment so we
Sure.
can get the clock started properly? I want to restart it, Ms. Coleman. It's actually supposed to be better than the egg timer, but we'll see. Well, I'll tell you what, Ms. Coleman, there you go. All right. Go ahead. Sorry to interrupt you.
That's okay. As I started to say, one of the main reasons we purchased our home on Vista Sierra Drive was the beautiful backyard. Our home sits on a quiet street with pristine desert woodlands adjoining our backyard. This is where we plan on retiring and where we have enjoyed sitting on our back patio practically every day, enjoying the peace and quiet and beauty of what we hear and see just over our back wall. There is so much wildlife there, and it saddens me to think of the possibility of losing that to another housing tract. We have jackrabbits and quail that make their way into our yard, numerous varieties of birds that we love watching fly around us, coyotes, roadrunners, and so much more that makes our home so special to us. The 20-plus acres that make up this tract were originally supposed to be part of the Woodland Preserve. My husband and I are here tonight to ask that the City Planning Commission reject the extension of this TTM and reacquire the property. It is pristine desert woodland and should be included in the Prime Desert Woodland Preserve as it was initially intended. If homes are built here, you are permanently taking away that possibility and adding extra traffic that would come with developing a housing tract. With so much wide open space here in the AV, why build more homes on what little natural woodlands we have left on in our city? We need to preserve this woodland and make it part of the preserve as it was intended. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Do we have another speaker?
Yes, Scott Lee.
Mr. Lee, welcome.
Thank you. My name is Scott Lee, and I'm here to ask you to reject the extension. I can stand here today and tell you that I'm less than the man I used to be. Over the last 2 years, I've lost over 80 pounds. I've had the wonderful experience of my doctor actually taking me off some of my medications. My diabetes medications are completely gone. And a big part of that is, well, the standard, eat less, exercise more, and a huge part of that program is Apollo Park, California Poppy Preserve, and the Woodland Preserve. And I would hate to not see those supported. They are valuable, important parts of our community. I'm not originally from California. I'm actually from the East Coast, so I'm actually more accustomed to larger parks. I actually found it amazing when I first moved here, things that people would call parks, I just called a lot. But when I see something like the Prime Desert Woodland Preserve, that shows me that there is this incredible natural beauty in this area. I've never even seen a desert until I come to Lancaster 15 years ago. And I didn't know the variations of beauty that they had. And this has been a great opportunity and learning experience for me to use the prime desert woodlands, and I would love to see it expanded and made better and made an incredibly useful and valuable part of the city of Lancaster and the community in Antelope Valley. I think it's too valuable to give up for housing. We have lots of other space for housing, and I think letting something like that go would be a tragedy. That's one of the things that makes something livable, is not just having houses there, but having these types of resources. So, thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Lee. Have another speaker?
Sharon Millen.
Sharon Millen. How are you, Sharon? Long time no see. What was it, the dedication of?
My late husband's,
Yes.
the school named after my late husband, David G. Millen.
Welcome.
And I must tell you, David passed away in 2004, but he's been talking to me this week. And he said, you need to go. You need to go to the meeting and you need to speak from your heart. Because if you don't, you're an equal to the people that complain all the time but never vote. So I am here to speak from the heart. I am Sharon Millen. My home is at 3802 West Avenue, K4 in Lancaster. My late husband, David, my soulmate, and I moved into this beautiful new home in 1987. From the large garden window in the kitchen, I look out upon an incredible, pristine desert woodland. When we bought our home, we were told that property was protected. We were told that it was designated to be included in the prime desert woodland. What a wonderful thing. We need to make this a reality. I must share a story about a walk with a grandson. By the way, I have 15 grandchildren. My son says I have so many that are real and so many that are phony because some of them are stepchildren, but they are all real, trust me. As we walked the area next to my home, he asked, Grandma, what are these big plants called? I replied that they were called Joshua trees. Question number 2, did you plant them, Grandma? Oh, my, no. I shared that the Joshua trees were almost 100 years old. I did not go into detail that I was not quite that old. I went on to tell him that they grow only in the certain desert area of the southwestern United States and in a place far, far away called Jerusalem. With the awe and wisdom of a small child, he exclaimed, Wow, they are really special. He was right. They are really special. This parcel is unique, beautiful, and incredible. I pride myself to be an optimist who looks for the good and works to make it even better. Today is Monday, January the 25th. We have an opportunity to go forward together as a team. I am not the enemy. And to protect and preserve this very special woodland. Wow, it is special. I pray that as in the invocation, you will do what is good for the city. And that city of the future are those small children. Thank you very much. Thank you, Jim.
Thank you, Sharon. Have another speaker, Mr. Ludicky?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Don, is it Geschel? Geschel? Gershel?
Deutsch.
No, yeah.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Don Gershel,
Good Abend.
and I've been a member, a resident of Lancaster since April 1994. I'm originally a native-born Californian, which I'm a foreigner, I guess. The property in question in this is pristine desert woodland area to 20.6 acres. There are many beautiful Joshua trees and juniper trees there that are excessive, probably around 100 years old, as well as many endangered plants. It is rare in itself for Joshua trees and juniper trees to occupy the same property. This is out there. Both are in the same property, and that is rare. The other thing that right now, the people are destroying that property with their recreational vehicles, tearing it up. There's trash out there. It needs to be, that needs to stop. And it's the city responsibility to do something about it. We've extinguished many, many animals and plants out there, which is a crying shame. It shouldn't happen. If we keep pushing these animals out, we're going to have just like what we had with the antelope, the pronghorn antelopes. There are none left out here because of man and what we've done. This valley used to be overrun with them. If we allow the continuation of destruction of property of this nature, it's going to be, it's atrocity. I appeal to the City Planning Commission to deny the extension, and I emphasize deny, of TTM 60291 and to begin acquisition of the 20.6 acres for expansion of the preserve in its original planned size to comply with city policy for protection of the desert woodland areas within the city. And also the Proposition 8 grant is still, funding grant is still active. This pristine woodland must be preserved. This is our responsibility to preserve this land for everyone. And don't we owe it to our children to protect this kind of property so that they can have it there for their children? I think this is very, very important. And again, it's pristine property. It's for everybody, not to destroy. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Do you have another speaker, Mr. Ludicky?
David Burrell.
Welcome, Mr. Burrell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Members of the Planning Commission, thank you. My name is David Burrell. I have been living in the Antelope Valley since 1982. I have been privileged to work outdoors in this desert. I'm a retired archaeologist. I was on staff with one of the environmental companies at Edwards Air Force Base, and I can tell you from my long exposure to the desert out there that when you're out there walking around, you're in a different world entirely. And what we have in the prime desert woodlands is indeed unique. I want to speak to you tonight about an issue, the issue of quality of life in where we live. This is something that I know our present mayor and other mayors and other planning commissions have spoken to. We want to create a high quality of life for people in Lancaster. And you've enjoyed a good measure of success, and I applaud efforts that have been made in the past and continue to be made in that regard. But one quality of life that only comes to us from nature is something like the prime desert woodland. When you walk around there, it's quiet, it's peaceful, there's a rhythm, there is a sense of relaxation, at least that I feel when I walk there. And that's not something the city can provide. That's already here. Now, it's a matter of, in my mind, does the City Council have an interest, and the Planning Commission have an interest in giving equal or perhaps greater weight to those voices crying out for that part of the quality equation that is irreplaceable in the city, that they can go to when they wish, walk, relax, sit down and read a book, listen to the birds. You can't do that in most places in the city. It's too built up, it's too organized. So if the city wants to do something lasting and that is irreplaceable and of inestimable value, you will reject the request for extension and move forward to acquire this acreage as originally intended and expand this wonderful desert preserve. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Do you have another speaker, Mr. Ludicky?
Yes, final speaker's card, Mr. Chairman. Teresa Kinderman. Did I get that correct?
Ms. Kinderman, welcome.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners. My name is Teresa Kinderman, and I've lived in the Antelope Valley for since 2005, when my husband and I purchased our home in West Lancaster. We were not aware of the Woodland Preserve when we first moved here, but it has become a treasure to us. We get up on the weekends, on Sunday morning, Saturday morning, when we have time, and the first choice where we go walking is the Desert Woodland Preserve. So I've learned a lot today from being here, just from the history and the dilemma that the commissioners are facing with regards to normally ownership is 9/10 of the law. We hear this all the time. So the ownership of the land, I understand, is a really big issue, but the fact that the, let me get my legalese here, that the extensions have expired, give us this opportunity to revisit the issue of whether or not we want to preserve the land here that is unique to the Antelope Valley for people like myself and others who will eventually move here. One of the things that I found when I go to the City of Lancaster website is that we advertise the Desert Woodland Preserve for people visiting the Antelope Valley to actually go visit it. And wouldn't it be wonderful if we could expand that experience, not just for the residents here and our future children and generations, but also those who visit our unique communities. So I just want to share with you, I love the preserve. I love to walk there with my husband. This Sunday we were there. We saw the notice. We decided to come to the meeting. We are new citizens to the United States. We've been citizens for about a month. And so we thought we would exercise our duty as citizens to voice to you how we feel about this treasure and ask that you save it for us. Thank you very much.
Congratulations on your new citizenship.
Thank you very much.
All right, thank you. Any further speakers?
I have no more cards, Mr. Chairman.
All right, thank you. Do we have an applicant representative here that care to offer anything? We do? I must apologize. You should have called on you first.
Not a problem.
I should have called on you first. However, you'll have an opportunity to rebut, and just so the public understands, the commission wants to hear everyone regarding this matter who wishes to speak to us. We have our rules of engagement, if you will, where the public has an opportunity to speak for 3 minutes. The applicant typically gets an opportunity to present in advance of the public speaking, as well as a chance to rebut at a time and to address us at our pleasure. So if it rambles on a while, don't be surprised.
Thank you,
Please,
Chairman
please
Bose.
proceed. Thank you.
Good evening, Commissioners, planning staff. My name is Chris Pinero, and I am a project management consultant for Royal Investors Group. We are here tonight to listen to the community and let the community know that we will be working closely with staff as we go through the process of our improvement plans, of our final map, and also pay specific attention to the mitigation monitoring program. As many in the audience may not realize, Royal Investors Group has a large number of tentative tracks in the city of Lancaster, and we are interested in being part of the community, listening to the community and city members to make sure that we are proceeding with very quality development and working with staff closely to continue to modify the plans to meet the revised conditions that the city has provided us. And we have sent you a letter saying that we agree with those new conditions. We will make sure that those are followed as well. If I could just take a moment to respond to a few of the comments made by the community. The Prime Desert Woodland Preserve is amazing. I'll be the first one to say that. It really is remarkable. However, as a representative of private ownership rights to property that's adjacent to it, I'm here tonight to request the tentative map be extended for a year to give us time to work with the improvement plans and the final map, and continue down the road for development. As we know, this tentative map was approved. We are just requesting an extension this evening. The other item I'd like to just mention is the property is owned by private investors, and if there is a group or there are people interested in purchasing the property, we are in business as a real estate development company. We are happy to receive any offers that the group would like to make for the property. But at this point, we would like to recommend or request the Planning Commission tonight to extend our one-year extension request.
All right, do you have anything further? There may be questions from the members. Anyone? So, have you had an opportunity to have any interaction with any of the folks here tonight?
I have not. Royal Investors Group and the partners purchased this property in 2012. After seeing the turnout this evening, I think working with planning staff and the community to make sure what is developed and make sure that that mitigation monitoring program is in place. And it's a pretty intense document, so I think that everyone understands what requirements are going to be necessary in order to improve the project, including, as one gentleman said, there's 42 off-site acres that have to be obtained. So there are some really specific items that have to be addressed in that program. So we will be sure to work with staff and the community on those items.
Did you happen to bring a pocket full of business cards with you tonight?
I did not, but I can
And for the record, would you please give us your name and spelling and phone number?
Sure. My first name's Chris, K-R-I-S. My last name is Pinero, P as in Paul, I-N-E-R-O. And my email address is Chris, K-R-I-S, @royalllc.com. It's very straightforward. Chris @royalllc.com. Phone number is 818-981-3000, extension 110.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Don't often do that, but since you didn't bring a handful of business cards, I had no choice.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for your comments. All right, then, we'll ask staff to address a number of issues that were brought up. First of all, Mr. Ludicky, I'd like you to review, or Mr. Ng, whichever, whomever, the current general plan policy for this particular property, the zoning, its relationship to former, or previous, I should say, general plan and land use issues, and what the commission may or may not do as it relates to acquisition of real estate from private landowners.
I'll begin. In fact, the very first speaker, I think, it was all of his facts were correct, with one exception, and I'll address that in a moment. But the site was originally designated as part of a prime desert woodland area. That boundary was changed on the general plan, as he indicated back in, I believe, 2000. The site, since that time, has been designated as urban residential and zoned as R10,000. It remains designated as urban residential and zoned R10,000. When the map was originally proposed, an environmental impact report was prepared for it. There were mitigation measures that were identified as a part of that environmental impact report. Those were adopted when the EIR was certified, and as the speaker indicated, that certified EIR remains valid, as do those mitigation measures. So those are all in place. There is no dispute on that. From the Planning Commission standpoint, the issue that is in front of you is whether or not to grant an extension to the existing map. From staff's perspective, our recommendation always goes to what are the findings contained in the city's subdivision ordinance. Now, as I know we've discussed before, extensions to tentative maps are one of the very few things in state law where the state, for whatever reason, decided not to give you a lot of guidance. It simply says a local agency, an advisory agency, may grant an extension to a map. That's a very wide open discretionary action. What we looked at, though, was, has there been any significant change in the area? Has there been any significant change in the circumstances under which the map is being proposed? Have there been any changes in the land use designation? None of the normal things that would cause us as a staff to recommend that you either deny a map extension or rethink it for some reason exist in this particular matter. That said, I still think as a planning commission you retain an enormous amount of discretion as to how you want to approach an individual extension request. Now, as to the one thing that is not correct, as a commission you do not have the authority to move forward to purchase property or acquire it or spend city funds in that regard. You are, however, as the city's planning body, quite at liberty to recommend to the City Council any action that you think they ought to consider or take a look at. One additional thing that I would add to this, number one, any decision obviously you make on a map extension is appealable. If you were to deny it, that is appealable. If you approve it, that is appealable. So ultimately, it is quite possible that the City Council, if an appeal were to be filed, will end up hearing this matter anyway. The final thing that I think I would state, and I heard this sort of implied from the testimony, and I would just give you a little bit of caution on it. Since the time that this map has been approved and going through, as you recall, a quite extensive general plan revision effort back in 2008, 2009, never did I hear either from the Planning Commission or, as I recall, from the City Council, a desire to rethink that prime desert woodland boundary. So not only was it not done or revised as a part of the new general plan, it, as far as I know, wasn't even directed for consideration. Would denial of this map make ultimate acquisition of the property easier? I don't think that that's a clear-cut answer. I could see an argument also made from an applicant standpoint that the city denied my map extension simply so that it could try to lower the value of the property. So I think any way you look on that particular side of the equation, you could make arguments either way. So getting back to the key thing, all you are being asked to do as a commission is either grant an extension or deny it.
And I guess I have a question more so for the Assistant City Attorney. So, trying to stay in my lane as a commissioner, if the request is for 66 single-family lots, but Ms. Pinero, in her testimony, made the remark that perhaps the applicant would be willing to hear any offers, or that, I'm paraphrasing, obviously. So I guess I don't know, what is it that what are the intentions for extending it, granting a one-year extension?
It's simply to keep the TTM alive. The owner of the parcel has the right to make whatever decisions they want to make with respect to the parcel. They're not necessarily locked into acting on this map, right? So you have your discretion, but that doesn't impinge on their rights as owners to make whatever determination they want to make about the property. So it's not necessarily inappropriate for her to have mentioned that they might be interested in entertaining offers. That's certainly, as owners, they have the right to contemplate whatever use or disposition of the property that they wish.
Okay, that answers my question. Thank you.
Anyone else have questions of staff? Go ahead.
Mr. Gershel said that there was grant funding available. I know we're big into writing grants, and I never have heard that before on this piece of property.
Yeah, not operating within the Parks, Recreation, and Arts realm. I'm not immediately familiar with that. I would say that if there was, on the part of the Planning Commission, a desire to at least provide a report or a comment to the City Council, that would be something you would include in that perhaps there's some investigation. But once again, that would be the Council's decision as to whether to direct staff to look at that or consider pursuing the property.
May I speak from the floor out here?
Pardon me.
May I speak?
You've all had your opportunity. Thank you.
That proposition name.
Excuse me. Thank you. You've had your opportunity.
I get no other?
No. Anything further from the members? Any questions, comments? All right. So you pointed out the environmental impact report, which was prepared back in 2005, I believe, initially. Was a complete environmental study, Ryan?
Correct.
What conditions, if any, are proposed as it relates to current conditions under the environmental issues?
In terms of?
What conditions are placed on this map extension, if any?
Quite a few, primarily from the biological side, and I think one speaker has alluded to it, and I believe the applicant's representative alluded to it also. The current requirement does mandate that if the map is to move forward, that the developer would have to acquire 42 acres of prime desert woodland land. A 2-to-1 ratio, basically, on the 21-acre site.
And who makes the determination of the suitability of the 42-acre acquisition?
We would require a qualified biologist to examine the land that's proposed for acquisition, compare it to the land that is being built upon, and make sure that that, in fact, is of similar quality, considering the fact, of course, that this is adjacent to an already open area of land, and whatever other factors a biologist would look at in terms of that. But yeah, that's not a determination staff would make. We would look to a qualified biologist to make that determination.
And the suitability of a site, as you've just defined, would it have to be within the city limits of the city of Lancaster?
No.
Could be anywhere in the county, in the state?
Could be anywhere where such a property exists, although we would certainly prefer that it be in the vicinity of the city of Lancaster.
And who would end up owning it?
Going back to what the city has done with its biological mitigation fee, as you may well be aware, the city has facilitated the acquisition of several hundred acres of mitigation land over the last few years, we always look to place that in the hands of a conservancy or other body which is essentially qualified to manage conservation property.
Not an inexpensive process, based on my personal experience.
No, I would agree with you there.
So, the proposal before us is to extend, and there are certain findings that you've pointed out and recommending to us. What findings would we have to consider if we deny?
I think you would have to look basically under finding number 2, whether the findings justifying the original approval remain valid. Number 3, the approval of the extension with the conditions allows for development of a project that is benefit to the public health, safety, and welfare through completion of vital infrastructure. I would say those are the 2 conditions that you would have to take a closer look at if you were interested in a potential denial or some other modification.
And historically, when we've had applications before us that we have considered a denial, we typically need to make those findings based on a majority decision of the members. And more often than not, then it comes back for a hearing a month later, so we can actually adopt that type of a finding. We can't typically, or we typically don't, make those determinations from the dais.
Yes, I think we've looked at them a couple of different ways, but the process you've described is one in which there are not existing findings for denial. Staff will, in those cases, normally take the direction of the commission, granted by consensus or some other vote, and prepare findings for the commission's consideration at their next hearing.
Did you foresee any compelling reason to make that consideration tonight, given the testimony that's been offered?
That's a rather difficult question for a staff member to answer, actually.
Well, Brian, you and I have known one another an awful long time.
Yes, we have.
And I occasionally will do a gotcha, so I gotcha.
Okay. Let me say that having been a veteran of this case back when it was first going through the process, the arguments that you heard are pretty much the same arguments that were raised at the time that the original map was approved. From staff's perspective, I don't know that there's really been much of a change biologically in that area. I think the mitigation measures remain certainly adequate for the map as proposed. I suppose we could argue back and forth as to whether they render the map economically feasible or infeasible. I really don't want to get into that discussion, because from the city's standpoint, we mitigated what we felt were the impacts of the project should it be approved.
All right, thank you.
Up to you.
All right, then, anything further from the members? No? All right, then. Anything further from staff? Anything further from staff?
Nothing else.
All right, thank you very much. All right, then, it would be appropriate to close the public hearing without objection. And before I consider a motion on this matter, I would like to thank everyone for coming here tonight and offering your testimony, and certainly it was from the heart. I felt that. I have no idea how the commission will vote, so we'll see how that turns out. But I do want to thank you all for coming tonight. It's not very often we get a large group of neighbors to come in and visit with us and express your concern, and we appreciate that very much. Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
So may we consider a motion?
I move that we grant a one-year extension to January 16th, 2017, based on the findings contained in the staff report and subject to the revised conditions list, attachment to resolution number 06-89.
Thank you. Have a second?
I'll second it.
Okay. Any further discussion? Please vote.
Motion passes by a 3-2 vote. As I indicated before, the action 4-2. I apologize. 4-2 vote. As I indicated earlier, the decision is appealable to the City Council within 10 working days with filing of appropriate appeal form and appropriate fee with the City Clerk.
All right. That's through your office, Mr. Ludicky?
No, it is through the City Clerk's office.
Through the City Clerk's office?
Yes.
All right. That's upstairs.
Yes.
All right. Thank you all. All right. The next item before us is another map.
Thank you.
The next item before us is vesting tentative track map number 60664. So without objection, the public hearing is open. Do we have any speakers on this, Mr. Ludicky?
No cards on this, Mr. Chairman.
All right. So, any objection to waiving the staff report? Nope. All right, then. So it'd be appropriate to close the public hearing and consider a motion.
Move to grant a one-year extension to January 6th, I'm sorry, is that the right one? Grant a one-year extension to January 16, 2000, based on the findings contained in the staff report and subject to the revised condition list attached to resolution number 06-90.
Thank you. Have a second, please?
I'll second that motion.
Thank you. Any further discussion, comment? Please vote.
Motion passes 6-0.
All right. And the last action item is 3F, which is a vesting tentative tract map number 61817. So without objection, the public hearing is open on this item. Do we have speakers on this?
No, Mr. Chairman.
I'd like to, just a brief staff report. We heard this in our staff briefing. However, there's some substantial changes proposed to this map and interesting impacts in the surrounding subdivisions. Engineering issues, drainage issues, all sorts of fun. Go ahead.
Good evening, Chairman. This is a time extension request for VTTM 61817. The applicant is Pacific Communities. This is a project located on 40 acres on the northeast corner of future Avenue H8 and 15th Street East. It is a subdivision for 151 single-family lots in the R7000 zone. The recommendation is for a 60-day time extension for a future public hearing at the March 21st, 2016 Planning Commission meeting. This is the second of 3 available extension requests for this map. Staff is requesting additional time so that we can obtain additional information regarding hydrology and to make sure that adequate mitigation measures are in place. There is a basin located to the north of this project site, which is a part of another tentative map, which is subject to expiration this month. So we need some time to work with the applicant to make sure that we do have adequate drainage facilities in place. I would add that we did have a discussion with the applicant since our special meeting 2 weeks ago, and I'm going to turn the time over to the city engineer for that explanation.
Thank you, Ms. Cantrell.
Good evening, Chairman Vos and Commissioners. As Chun mentioned, we did have an opportunity to speak with the applicant and talk about the drainage for this project as well as the adjacent tracks. We actually found something out that we didn't know before we had met with you, that the applicant actually owns the property to the east as well. They bought that tract, which is 61819, and is due east of this. So it was partially built out, but is not complete. So that was somewhat good news in that we are at least dealing with the same owner of two adjacent and connected tracts. The property to the north, however, they did not acquire. That's a third party, and as Chun mentioned, it is subject to expiration this month. The basin that was started to the north was actually dedicated to the city, but it was never completed. So what we wanted to be able to have more time is to look at what infrastructure went in with these two tracks as well as the one to the north, to make sure that there is a complete storm drain system that does go to that basin, and then to determine what other measures we may need to condition to bring that basin up to our standards, and so that we can maintain it and have a complete storm drain system. So by giving us a little bit more time, we're finding out more information and getting more studies from the applicant so that we can make good recommendations to you for either new conditions or whether to extend the tract or not.
So you did, if I understood you correctly, you said that the basin, which is offsite to the north, has been dedicated in fee to the city?
Yes, that's correct.
And a ability to access it as well?
Yes. Yes, it's the city's property. But the basin, the construction of it was never accepted for maintenance.
I see.
So those improvements that original developer put in, we never accepted those storm drain improvements. Same with the local sewer that's in the streets for this tract and the previous one, 61819.
So it's been sitting fallow for a number of years then?
Yes, that's correct. So we may need to do some investigation to the existing condition of those storm drains as well, just to and/or have some conditions that says that they'll have to mitigate any damage or fix anything that wasn't up to our standards before accepting.
60 days going to give you sufficient time to do all that?
Yes, I believe so. I think our conditions can be general enough that could cover, hopefully. But as long as the applicant, of course, is willing to accept those conditions.
Good, thank you. Anything from members? No. All right then, and we have any speakers on this?
Not on this case, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. The applicant's not here, I guess. All right then. So it would be appropriate to close the public hearing without objection and consider a motion.
I'll make the motion that we grant a 60-day time extension for a future public hearing at the March 21st, 2016 Planning Commission meeting.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you. Questions or comments? Please vote.
Motion passes 6-0.
All right, thank you. That concludes our action items. Mr. Liddicky, do you have director's announcements?
No, I really don't have anything for this evening, Mr. Chairman.
All right, thank you. Commission members, do you have anything you want to bring forward?
One item, I read in the newspaper in Kern County that Lorelei Olivet was saying that a windmill in Kern County can be torn down and built with a bigger one without going through planning process or having its environmental impact discussed. So I was just concerned that with all the building that we're doing for renewable energy, that we're going to keep control of that. We won't do something like that in the future where we'll give up our direction that we give from up here.
You aware of that?
Actually, until Vice Chairman Hall had mentioned it to me just before the meeting, I was not aware of Kern County's position on their windmill or wind turbine ordinance. The city, of course, doesn't allow commercial wind energy in terms of that approach, and for the most part, with our solar projects in rural residential or non-urban areas, any kind of major change to those is still going to require an amendment to the use permit to come back to the Planning Commission.
So all of the uses, all these alternative type uses generating power, if you will, all require a conditional use permit, and any modifications back to us?
In the city of Lancaster, in general, yes. There are some exceptions, but they're pretty minor. So.
And there's still substantial over-the-counter approvals for individual residences, solar and wind, I believe.
Yes, and the state has requirements actually now that those have to be streamlined, so we're in compliance with that.
Right. All right, very good. Thank you. Anything further from the members? Nope. All right, public business from the floor on non-agendized items. This portion of the agenda allows an individual the opportunity to address the commission on any subject regarding city business. Under state legislation, no action can be taken on non-agenda items. Members of the public should be aware of this when addressing the commission regarding items not specifically referenced on the agenda. Please complete a speaker's card, and if we have any, they have 3 minutes.
Yes.
Do we have any?
Yes. Patrick Setzer again.
Welcome back.
This will be short. I just wanted to inform the council that I am in communication with the County of Los Angeles Proposition A organization. The city has, for the Prime Desert Woodlands, has acquired about $5.8 million of Proposition A money, and they are willing to give you more. It's available, and you just have to prepare the grant. So I just wanted to, that's why my hand was up. There's money available for this, and you've already sunk in almost $5.5 million of county taxpayer money, and a little bit more won't hurt. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. All right then, do we have anything further from staff? Members?
No, other than to say I'll relay the gentleman's information to the Director of Parks, Recreation, and Arts.
Very good. Appreciate that. All right then. So, We will stand adjourned to our meeting, special meeting for agenda review on Monday, February 8th, 2016 at 5:30 p.m. here in the Parks, Recreation, and Arts Conference Room at City Hall. Thank you all for your efforts tonight. Appreciate it very much. Good night.